Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the Morning Dump. I'm your host, Jose Galison. It's Friday, July 17th, and this is the kitty of the day, Ren. This is one of our old lady of our cattery, our old queen. I think we're done. We need to get her fixed soon, but I think she just somewhat recently had her last litter, so I think we'll be retiring her. I don't know, maybe finding a new home. I kind of like her. I think we might just keep her around. She's a real sweetie pie. But hey, you can't keep them all. But hey, whatever. She's a sweetheart. I'm gonna try. I think I might keep her for the long haul. She's sweet. I really like her. Really sweet mama. Really pretty coloration. Chocolate torty. Pretty rare color. You don't see that too often. A lot of people come to our cattery for just that. Now, if you like seeing my hot takes Monday through Friday, or if you just like seeing the kitty of the day, typically around 11 a.m. Eastern, that's when we usually do this, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications. That way you can see when we're going live and when we're dropping new videos. And with that, we'll see you in the show.
Beautiful thing right now.
Rise and shine. It's a beautiful day. I am alright.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
This is the bridge to white light.
Our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
It's crazy evil.
Good morning, everyone, fellow dumpers and newcomers. Hope you guys are having a good one, getting ready to go into the weekend. Hope you guys have a good weekend. We have plenty to go through today. As always, we start the show off with some icebreaker content. We have some funny, glowy content, I guess you could say today. And then we will get into our foreign policy coverage. We will get into the what's going on in the world of war. Then we will get into our first titled segment of the day, the JD experience. Old JD Vance went on JRE, so it's a little bit of a clip day today. Got a lot of clips for you all today. It's a rainy day today where I'm at, so it kind of seems fitting, kind of like when you got not an assistant, but why am I retarded right now? Who fills in for your teacher? Not an assistant teacher, but whatever. I'm retarded. You got to fill in, or the teacher's drunk. We're doing clips, but we have plenty to talk about too, more than just clips. We have a few stories to go through. For example, the following segment, we have the Israeli MAGA influencer op. We'll be digging into the timepiece that dropped on Trump's former campaign manager running an Israeli influence op. Get into all of that and more. Now, if you're new here, I do like to give a little bit of a reminder of what this show is. I call this an info dump format. Just kind of a bunch of stuff we're throwing at the wall. Most of the stuff we're working through together as a group. This is a live interactive experience, although I know most of you guys don't end up watching this live. Most of you guys watch this or listen to this later. And for you guys, to accommodate you, I put timestamps. That way you can jump around from segment to segment, and you can avoid the chat banter. Now, if you are here for the live experience, I do like to remind you guys, you get at least, I try to give everyone at least one good morning. After that, you got to catch my interest or catch my wallet. Wallet, obviously, being super chat. You can support the show in that way and get your chat brought up on screen. Or you can support the show and get a bunch of other perks over at patreon.com. Just NoWayJose2020, a low level of $2. And I don't know, I'm pretty good at knowing who my people are. So I'm pretty good too at that point of prioritizing the patrons. So I keep an eye on you beautiful people. We are a tight-knit community. But with that, let's roll through the chat. Let's go ahead and not roll through the chat. I'm retarded. I said that backwards. Something in the chat caught me off guard there. But let's roll through. Let's go ahead and God, I'm all thrown off today. Well, not roll through. Let's go ahead and get into our icebreaker content. This came across my feed yesterday, and I just couldn't help but share it with you guys. Just kind of getting into the methodology of spooks. How they do what they do. What is it that they do? Here you go. Without any further context, you'll enjoy this one.
The perfect spy blowjob. That's one of the most important skill any woman can have. There are like many techniques, but one of the most important is deep throat technique is one of the most desirable thing any man want to have. There's certain things you have to know before actually doing it, otherwise it will be painful for man. Also, it can be painful for your throat. There are techniques to learn before doing that, because otherwise your husband would hate it. So when you do it, try it maybe at least on a banana or even like plastic dildo, because like before performing on human body. Right. Because it can be really painful. So it has to go on top of your mouth. And at the same time, you do like breathe in and then you swallow it. And also your head has to be like 90 degrees angle. Otherwise, if you do like any other angle, it will be painful for you then. In porn, like women are laying on the bed and then the man on top of her, like, basically doing this kind of like oral sex. But no. You say it and he stands. For example, this is like 90 degrees.
Wow. This is why I love this podcast, is because I never thought I'd be having these conversations.
Well, all right. Well, speaking about other spies, other glowies sucking dick, let's check in on Clavicular. It's always fun to see what's going on with him. Here is, I don't know, just something. Apparently he's been over in Israel. That's been the latest murmurs I've heard about this fella. So here he is on an Israeli Channel 13 being pressed about the Clubacos. For those who don't recall, a while back over here in the States, I believe it was in Miami, actually. It was Clavicular, Tates, Fuentes, Sneeko, Myron Gaines, maybe some others. And there was a big hubbub about the fact that, oh no, they played NHH, Nigga Heil Hitler by Ye in the club, but when they were there, like they requested it. I think they also did it on like the limo over or some shit. So all those things got clipped and shared around, and it was actually pretty. I mean, it was really gay. I remember fucking. I think who was it? Tristan? Not Tristan. Andrew Tate. I think he apologized for it. Sneeko didn't, which was pretty G of him. Not that I'm like necessarily a huge fan of his or anything. But I think there were some others who did too. But either way, it was really gay. But I'll give Clavicular some credit. I don't think, if I recall correctly, he ever really caved on it. But here we go. Let's watch this clip.
You apologize to me for why don't you?
Sorry, I just noticed it's pretty quiet. So let me know if it's like you guys are completely unable to hear it. But here you go.
Why don't you apologize to me for wasting my time?
You know what everybody in Israel is talking about right now, right?
Well, everyone in Israel is talking about what we're doing that's good. So for you to kind of start the interview off in like a negative manner doesn't really make sense. We came here after a ceasefire ended in a very unstable state, technically, to kind of show that Israel's a safe place. So for you to start off in an antagonistic way, I'm really kind of just confused.
But how can you not talk about
like
the song?
Poor journalist
Just tell
tactic.
me.
No. So if you're going to be negative, and ask about like old situations that are not so positive, then I really don't want to talk to you.
Last January is not that old. You got kicked out of a club because of this.
After I was kicked out of the club, the owner called me and profusely apologized.
That's a lie.
Offered me to come back and comp my entire night. So it was just a mix-up.
No, that's a lie. So why not clean the page?
So why not? So why don't you clean the page and talk about how much I've done for this country's reputation because it's in utter shambles. You go on any social media page, the amount of propaganda among Gen Z and misconceptions, so that's what's doing the real damage, right? Not anything I've done that, we're here trying to set everything straight. I don't have to be in Israel, and quite frankly, if you're like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. I don't want to be talking to someone who's going to be rude.
We understand, but there's an online backlash,
Because I'm here to do good things. So there's a backlash because of people like you. There's an online backlash because people like you, talking about negative things. So why don't you acknowledge the fact that I'm here doing a good thing for the country, showing off Tel Aviv's beauty, showing off that it's safe.
Okay.
So why don't you talk about that, and then there won't be a bad PR. Okay. So you're the one who's causing these issues. So you are the one who's doing this.
How can you not see the comments?
How can you not see? Because I can't read them. It's in a different language. It's in
do you have AI and Google Translate?
I can't. I have Google Translate. Yeah. Live on TikTok. Yeah, I can totally. Yeah, let me copy and paste every single little thing into Google Translate.
But you surely understand that people are angry.
No. Let me make you understand. I'm here for a good thing, and you're trying to drag me through the mud and, give me reputational damage. So quite
What's
honestly,
wrong with apologizing about singing Heil Hitler?
No, this interview is over.
Just apologize.
Why don't you apologize to me for? Why don't you apologize?
I need to apologize?
Why don't you apologize to me for wasting my time?
Why are you afraid to apologize?
I think he just said no. I don't know why I'm beginning this whole thing, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, okay, there he is. There's Clavicular kind of being pressed about this stupid fucking NHH thing in the club. I thought it was pretty funny. The person here that I found when I found this post, the quote tweet, it was essentially glazing this kid. Says, plays Heil Hitler by Ye, still gets invited. Israel tells Jews it's their fault for getting mad, tells Jews no one likes them, leaves. And he goes, he's actually the GOAT. Jake Shields replied and goes, he admits he is there to do propaganda for Israel. He's a total faggot, which, if you did pay attention, I mean, I've heard that rumor. I haven't looked into it extensively to see if that is legitimately what he's doing, but he basically just said it in that multiple times, like even like, hey, I'm here. Like, I know it sounded kind of whack, like you're like, oh, you should be focusing on the good things, and like, I'm here to, helping you guys look good, and like, why would you be trying to, bring me to... And, kind of it sounded like aggrandizing himself, and it kind of was, but I actually think if you kind of, think about what he's saying, I think he actually literally is there on some sort of propaganda tour of some sort, is my understanding. So, yeah, I mean, kind of in multiple ways essentially said just that is what the implication was, in my opinion, at least. So whatever, there's that. He's, I don't know what's going on with Clavicular. It's fun to check in every now and then. It is absurd. I kind of feel a little bad for the guy because he does seem a little bit misguided, but hey, who knows? Maybe he'll find his way. All right, one more weird Ask Loey story, and then we'll move on to foreign policy. One of you beautiful people, shared this to me. Apparently, we covered this guy on the show recently. I think his name is Victor Marks. Yeah, Victor Marks is there at the bottom. And this is, I think he's run in Colorado or something. Apparently he's this guy who's made this whole reputation for himself over the years. We covered one of his clips, and it was like one of his claims that he's a missionary and he's killed people, saving people in foreign places, and he's like, I don't know, like kind of a saving the children sort of thing. But it's like, it's all these crazy, fantastical stories of him doing like borderline spy stuff. And I mean, he's a 7th degree black belt. Well, to add to this, here's him. Apparently one of his accolades is he has, I guess, the fastest gun disarm. I don't know if that's official, but that's kind of like the tagline with this guy. You see some places, the fastest disarm. Which I heard that at first, and I don't know why my brain like kind of just, I guess your brain fills in the blanks. I heard that, and I thought it meant like a drawing, like a quick draw. Like I don't know. Obviously those are different things. Disarm, quick draw. But for some reason, I just like disarming is such an absurd concept. But here is a video of him doing just that. So just a little bit of fair warning to people out there: don't be going and pulling guns on Victor Marks, because he will disarm you, and he. So let's watch this. Here you go. This is the guy running. I think it's for like senator or something over in Colorado, and I think he's the GOP frontrunner too. So I don't know what stage they're in. They probably won the primary already. So, but here you go. Let's watch this. Here is pay attention, blink, and you'll miss it. That's how quick this guy is. It's the quickest disarm. Here you go. All right, there you go. There's Victor Marks. Okay, for those who aren't aware, I'm like laughing. If you, I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm sounding like I'm aggrandizing myself. By no means do I think I'm any sort of or any sort of martial arts expert or anything. But it's kind of just like well known by anybody who has even like the tiniest bit of like you see these these are shared around as like jokes. Like we used to play these sort of things at like Tower Gang, like the guy stabbing you, and then okay, what do we do? Those silly like self-defense things you see online. You're like, well, then you take away the knife, stab him in the eyes twice. You take the other guy with a gun, you throw the knife from across. Like, just these ridiculous, like, the idea that you're going to disarm somebody. Like, yeah, sure, theoretically it is possible. And, like, maybe you would be, the idea that you would be, like, the goal is to disarm, it's not effective. I guess that's the best way to put it. For anyone out there that has any auspices that you're going to, like, in a life or death moment, like, if you see a guy or run into some place with a gun and you're like, in your head, you're like, you know what? This is my fucking moment. I've seen this video like 20 times on YouTube. I think I can do it. Or even if you sit there like a retard and actually do their stupid little things where you sit there and practice the movements over and over again. Even if you've done that, you're probably going to get shot in the fucking face. Like, so just process that into your internal calculation before you start playing the "There Goes My Hero" in your head as you're like about to do something super fucking cool and you get domed in the fucking head. So just saying, keep that in mind. You're almost certainly, like, even if you are like legit, like even if you are fucking like Jake Shields or some like even if you're George St. Pierre fucking, like even if you are some top tier martial arts guy, if someone comes in with a gun, just go ahead and assume that guy kind of has won. So, like, you are now in bargaining territory, maybe escaping territory. Maybe you may get lucky and see some sort of window of attack, but you have been essentially defeated. Just know that. Don't think, you know what? I've looked at Victor Marks disarming a man. I've gone to a few of the self-defense classes. You're not going to do it. So, just thrown out there. If one of you guys gets domed in the head, it's on you now. I don't have to feel bad. But with that, let's roll to the chat. Say some good morning. Say some hellos. Let's do that. Let's check in on you beautiful people. Good morning, Shannon Jones. Says, good morning, brother. Hope you're doing well. Doing all right. Pretty good day. Not too bad. Not much to complain about. Good morning, Tom33. Saying no words. Trying to get me deep boosted. Saying what's good. Saying the fun word. Good morning, Cubertimo. Say fuck going on. What's up? Good morning, K-Sharp. Morning from East Tennessee. East Tennessee, that's actually where I'm from. That's cool. What part of East Tennessee are you from? I grew up in, well, I say grew up. I didn't really grow up. I was born in Maine, and I lived there until like halfway through sophomore year in high school. Moved halfway through high school, and then up until like essentially or early adulthood before I shipped off to the military. Is where I was in East Tennessee. So, like, I guess, like, it feels like home because it was, like, you know, before I got stuck in the military and got stuck here in Florida, that was a place I was at. That's, like, you know, early adulthood, you know, late high school. So it kind of feels like home. In a certain other sense, you know, home, you know, Maine feels like home, if that makes sense to anybody. I don't know, but anyways, Greenville was where I was at there. Greenville, Green Evil. Is where I went to school, where I lived in that general area, kind of South Green area, if that's familiar with you. South Green's actually where I went to school. I'm trying to think. So Greenville, yeah, I went to college in Johnson City. See if any of those things are ringing a bell. Probably do for you. So, but cool. Good to see somebody else from East Tennessee. Good morning to you. Cubert throwing his normal hate, saying I'm ugly. I know I'm cute. You're not going to bring me down. What else we got? Good morning, Martin Matt. Good morning, Fire Pixie. Man, I never cease to marvel at how large my female audience is, and by that I mean there's more than one. Good morning, Cubertimo. I think you switched over platforms. I think, or I'm just retarded. Now, Fire Pixie definitely did see you on another platform. Good morning, Pixie. This is how you double up. Good morning. Northside says, "Don't listen, Jose. You can get the officer's weapon. Yeah, you can. Yeah, totally." Tom says, "Only way to disarm someone like that is if they already don't have the balls to pull the trigger." Yeah, there is, I guess, some truth to that. Like, I guess if you really. It's like they're not going to pull. But even then, I think a lot of people, just from the shock, even if you don't have the balls, just in the moment. Like, we saw that Victor Marks one. There's a good delay. Like, even when you've seen his hand moving, like, I felt like that was a good amount of time. And, like, I feel like if someone did lurch at me like that and you're already in that situation, you will probably kind of, and even just from the shock of the moment, I almost could see how, like, someone could pull the trigger and then, like, after the fact, be like, well, fuck, I really didn't want to do that. Like, you almost, in a certain sense, sort of forced it. like they were too pussy to do it, but in fact, you kind of shocked them, and you're like, and kind of, cause a defense, sort of situation for them that they didn't do fucking shoot you. So, Sullivan County. Okay, cool. I don't think I'm familiar with that. Vaguely I recall it. Maybe I probably played them in school a couple times. Although Northside's right, though. Just pick a female cop. You'll probably be good. They don't ever shoot anyone. Everyone knows that. Good morning. Hey, say what now? Good morning. What else we got? Cubers, is a problem you can get the weapon even if they pull the trigger as long as you stop the slide. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've seen people say that, like, just reach and grab the slide, and that way, like, you can't, like, yeah, you're going to, like, stop it mid-action or something. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I've seen people say that shit, like, yeah, just stop the slide. Yeah, that's a good way to get fucking shot. But, hey, whatever, it's fun to imagine. Let's go ahead and roll through, let's go and get foreign policy that we've got through the chat. Fire Pixie says, you have chicks here because bitches be sick of the crap, too. Yeah, that is true. It is an infinite what is with my words today? It's a constant situation with women. Bitches be tripping. Always bitches be tripping. You just got to get them tripping about the right shit, and that's what we're trying to do here. Let's go ahead and get into foreign policy. Checking the latest. Got a little bit more dense than normal since I did skip the dump yesterday. I took a little bit of day off. Went to do some stuff with the kiddos. So it was a good day, and so I just dropped one of those paywalled episodes. I was getting very stocked up on paywalled episodes anyways, so hey, I dropped one yesterday and then recorded one with Jacob. I still have more. I try to keep like 4 in there. There's like 5 paywalled episodes in there right now, so I've just been slacking on dropping them. We'll try to be better at that. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into some foreign policy. We got, here's this piece from the other day, kind of checking in on the civilian situation in regards to the attacks of the United States on Iran. Also, this will give us a little bit of update on what we missed from the day that we were out, that we didn't cover foreign policy stuff. So here's from Dave DeCamp over at antiwar.com. Says an Iranian government spokeswoman on Wednesday alleged the recent U.S. attacks in southern Iran have killed over 30 civilians as U.S. airstrikes. As U.S. strikes have been pounding Iran for 5 consecutive days. In the recent attacks in the southern part of the country, more than 30 civilians were martyred. Fatima Maharajani wrote on X, while expressing condolences and sympathy to the bereaved family as we honor the memory of the fallen. The government will stand by the people with all its might. The south of Iran is the beating heart of this land. The south of Iran is the soul of Iran, she added. Iranian media has reported several U.S. strikes on civilian infrastructure over the past day, including an attack that hit a bottled water factory. Yeah, it seems like a total legit military target. Because here's the thing, too. The funny thing is when you get into these targets, the way they justify this is because they're like, say they're dual use, like they're military and civilian. So it's like, well, military drinks bottled water, too. I guess that's where we've gotten into logic. Also a wheat silo. The military eats food, too. CENTCOM responded to the allegations about its forces bombing a wheat storage facility, calling it false. CENTCOM announced 2 rounds of strikes against Iran on Wednesday that it said targeted Iranian military capabilities used to threaten vessels freely transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, it is pretty hard to target or to be one of these Iranians targeting military capabilities or to do all that if you haven't eaten or drank. So I guess that's helpful in that way. It also said that its forces bombed an oil tanker attempting to sail to Karg Island as it has reimposed the blockade of Iran. Iranian media reported the U.S. strikes on Wednesday hit an army barracks in southeastern Iran, killing 7 soldiers and wounding 13. The Iranian military condemned the strike and vowed a decisive response. So, you know what? I better not ever hear a fucking thing about fucking Hezbollah striking fucking Marines in the barracks in Lebanon ever fucking again, because there you go. They fucking killed some people in barracks. So, hey, I mean, I don't want any of these people to die, but I'm sorry, that's a military target. It is what it is. Iranian forces have continued to target U.S. bases across the region, and Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced attacks on U.S. facilities in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan on Wednesday. Footage published by Iranian media purportedly shows missiles impacting U.S. military bases. We also we have an update on the Manab school massacre, the status of any sort of responsibility whatsoever for that. Spoiler: not looking too likely. Here's a clip with Trey Yinks, I think is this guy's name. Yeah, Trey Yinks. Fox News report. He's one of these guys, like one of the few guys you see Trump ever really talk to. Trey Yinks. He's kind of one of his inside guys over at Fox, but here he is, and with that, I mentioned that too to kind of keep it in mind. Keep in mind the things Trey Yinks is saying and how he's putting it, considering that he is essentially, for all intents and purposes, he's basically kind of Trump's man there. So it is kind of like even he is kind of framing it in this way. So here you go.
Democrats released a letter calling on your administration to unveil the findings of the investigation into a strike that killed more than 100 children on the first day of the war. Will you commit to releasing the findings of this investigation?
Well, I'd have to speak to the generals that are doing because we mostly have generals. I don't think anybody's going to ever be able to say what happened there.
Yes, they will, and yes, they do.
There are images from this site that show fragments that appear to be from U.S. Tomahawk missiles. Is it possible that old intelligence or a mistake during a very active time in the war led to this event?
It is, but it's also possible that those images that you have are AI generated. I know we're waiting for a conclusive report. I don't think there can be a conclusive report.
Will you release the report?
Did you catch that? I don't think there can be a conclusive report. Did you see how he referenced AI? I just think that is 100% like a essentially, hey, we're in the post-reality world. How can we ever know anything's ever true? Although, let's be real. We can say with pretty high level of certainty, it was the U.S. Pretty much every bit of reporting, every bit of evidence has suggested this. We're the only ones who really seem to have or that have Patriot missiles, unless there's something, something intel-wise big that we missed, and that like other countries have it. It's not looking very likely. All right, here we go. Let's keep going.
When it is finished?
I guess so. I mean, I have to ask the military people. There might be a reason why they can't.
During the interview, the president had a very clear message for the Iranian regime. Make a deal or the strikes against Iran will ramp up in the days ahead. He said he is reserving energy targets for the end, but he did not rule out the possibility of a ground operation in the future and talked about how the Iranians at this moment are unwilling to make a deal. Ainsley?
Oh, what a great interview.
All right, let's read a little bit about this piece. So U.S. officials have told several media outlets the Pentagon's investigation found the U.S. was responsible for the strike, and that it was carried out due to old intelligence, with CNN recently reporting that U.S. military commanders bypassed warnings in critical databases and intelligence about potential targets in Iran was severely out of date and approved the strike. Sources told CNN that U.S. military officials knew within days of the strike how the mistake happened, yet the administration continues to claim it's unclear what happened. Right here is a photo, kind of really drives the point home. This is a photo of graves being dug for the children that were killed. This is an aerial photo of it. Pretty kind of sends a little bit of chills up your spine. That's pretty fucked up. Yinks asked, okay, so then it just kind of, the article keeps going on about just kind of reiterating the quotes we just listened to. So while the death toll in the attack on the school in Manab varies, with some reports saying 168 people were killed and others putting the number at 175, the general prosecutor Manab said in early April the final death toll was 156, including 120 students. 73 boys, 47 girls, which I guess that was a bit of a, I even myself was repeating that. For some reason, I guess it was reported this was a girls' school, which I guess maybe it was, but somehow it still was, there were more boys than girls that actually died. So 73 boys, 47 girls, 26 female teachers, 7 parents, a school bus driver, and a technician at a nearby clinic. So, just a little recap on that. It's not looking like anything's happening there. This is one of those ones that like people forget about, but if you really put this in perspective, this is like fucking huge. What did we say the final toll was? 175, 120 of these being children. I mean, before 9/11, the big thing in the United States was the Oklahoma City bombing, which, you guys know that's kind of what I've made a lot of hay about on this show. Something I've shown a lot of interest in, and what was it, like 169, I think, people died in that. So roughly about the same people, but theirs was almost entirely children. And like that was our previous 9/11. And then also put into like, what is even the population of Iran? I guess I'm trying to like put it in context compared to ours, because we were around like 350, I think is usually what they say. So what is there? So theirs is, I just looked it up real quick, 93 million. So even then they're like a third the size, maybe actually closer to a quarter, around a quarter, third to a quarter the size of the United States. And we gave them essentially an equivalent attack to the Oklahoma City bombing. But instead of, the Oklahoma City bombing, targeted a federal building, there was a daycare there. So a good number of children did unfortunately die. But this one was almost entirely children. So this is literally even worse. This is worse than our previous 9/11. Just think about how that, that looks in the eyes. And you add to that, with all of this going on, it wasn't even just that one isolated attack. There were other attacks occurring at the same place. Also on top of that, the literal leader of their country got eliminated. So, quite an insane. This is definitely even beyond their 9/11 at this point. So just definitely something to keep in mind with all of this, and just and even still just trying to ignore it, act like it's no big deal. No, well, we don't know. Oh, we'll never really know. No, it looks like we kind of know. And then we got more attacks. U.S. launches attacks on Iran for 6th consecutive night. This is last night. So U.S. CENTCOM on Thursday announced it was bombing Iran for the 6th consecutive night as the U.S. continues to escalate its attacks in the country. At 2 p.m. Eastern yesterday, U.S. forces began conducting a new wave of strikes against Iran for the 6th consecutive night to further degrade Iranian military capabilities, CENTCOM wrote in X. Iranian media reported several attacks on bridges and other infrastructure in Iran, suggesting President Trump was beginning to make good on his threat to destroy the country's bridges and power plants. According to Drop Site News, at least 3 bridges were targeted by the U.S. strikes, and Iran's Mehr News Agency reported that at least 3 people were killed and 9 wounded by a strike on one of the bridges in Bandar Kamir, a port city of the Hormozgan province. Iranian media also reported a strike on a railway station in the port city of Bandar Abbas, an attack on an airport in Iran Shah, a city in Iran's southeast. CENTCOM also announced that U.S. Marines conducted what it called the verification boarding of a tanker in the Gulf of Oman, as it is once again enforcing a blockade of Iranian ports. Earlier on Thursday, Iran's military warned that it would target infrastructure across the region if the U.S. began bombing Iranian infrastructure. So it looks like U.S. infrastructure and maybe allies' infrastructure in the region is now very much on the table. Abraham Zulfagari, spokesman for Iran's Qatam al-Anbiya Central Command, said if Trump's threats were carried out, then everything that, owing to Iran's strait, still remains, meaning all infrastructure in the region, will be crushed under the steel blows of the powerful armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, such that no trace of it shall remain, as if it never existed. The IRGC also announced it launched attacks on U.S. bases in the region on Thursday, claiming to hit an early warning radar and a gathering of U.S. troops in Kuwait. So far, there's been no confirmation or denial from the U.S. of any U.S. casualties. And then to add even more, another little horrific story, kind of very much in the vein of the Manab school attack. Apparently, they were attacking near a children's cancer hospital in a forced evacuation. Iran Foreign Ministry said on Thursday the barbaric attack near a cancer hospital in the southwestern Iranian city of Avas forced the evacuation of the medical facility. Shahid Bakay Hospital, a children's cancer treatment center in Ahvaz, was evacuated last night after the U.S. attacked a nearby location. Esmail Baghi, the Iranian foreign ministry spokesman, wrote on X, this barbaric attack, reminiscent of Israel's atrocities against healthcare facilities, caused severe suffering and anxiety upon the hospitalized children and forced the emergency evacuation of 211 patients undergoing therapy or chemotherapy. Begay said the attack constitutes a cowardly war crime against the most innocent of human beings, children who are bravely fighting for their lives. Araghchi also released a statement Thursday accusing the U.S. of committing war crimes against Iran, which he urged Gulf countries to stop allowing the U.S. to launch attacks from their country as Iran has continued launching retaliatory attacks on U.S. bases across the region. Which, I mean, I guess I find it interesting and worthwhile mentioning at this point. I know we talked, I think, the last dump about, or actually the last dump and the dump before that, about the fees in the Strait, the possibility of it. And we had Trump talking about a 20% fee, and then, after them acting like it was completely, no one could, ever put fees because that would be so wrong, and that's why Iran can't do it, but yet now we can, and they're going to do 20%. And Iran themselves pointed out, after the fact, like, well, hey, we were doing like 1 or 2%, so we'd be way more fair. Trump then did back it up a little bit or walk it back, and then kind of be like, well, this needs some deals from the countries or concessions or find some way, so maybe not as steep. But either way, I think to some degree that this damage was already kind of done there. Like, what a great example for the rest of the world to kind of really, get a feel, kind of put your finger in the air and go, huh. I mean, what is likely to be the situation when all of this is said and done? Let's be real. The most likely situation when this is all said and done is Iran will have control of the Strait, and they almost certainly will be instituting tolls. So, I mean, and this is quite the lifeline for cargo and fuel for the world. So it's just kind of one of those things where you can kind of get with a program or not for a lot of these countries. So I'm interested to see how this works out going forward. Araghchi wrote in Telegram that Tehran was calling on regional countries to prevent the continuation and spread of the fire of war in the region by immediately preventing the aggressors from using their land, sea, and air facilities and territory to attack Iran, and not to allow the sinister American Zionist conspiracy to create hostility and suspicion between the countries of the region to be realized. So I guess kind of what I was driving at is, like, if you have like these two horses that you want to back, and one of them and one of them's almost way more likely to get what they want, and even then what they want is going to cost you far less, it's like it makes more sense to back that horse. I mean, I know there's a whole lot more other calculation that goes into it because there's more than just the Strait. There's other things the U.S. provides to the world and some of these other countries, but that is definitely a pretty good visual, I think. U.S. strikes against Iran Thursday hit near the capital of Tehran for the first time during this round of the war, marking escalation of U.S. attacks. U.S. has also begun reinforcing the blockade against Iran and bombed a ship on Wednesday that said was attempting to reach cargo. Oh, yeah, we already talked about that. All right, let's move on. We also got U.S. bombed Somalia for the 75th time this year, so up to 75, so still well on track to take the record, beating their previous one, which I believe was 124, that over 2x their previous record that's been beating everybody. So we are bombing the absolute shit of Somalia, and we don't seem to really know why. Moving on, a little bit more hopeful, situation here. It kind of looks like a political sea change of sorts. Over 100 Democrats joined Massey in voting to cut $3.3 billion in military aid to Israel, which this is one of those ones that, like, this kind of, in years past, it's always been a bipartisan thing. Like, basically, both sides of the aisle, pretty much everybody votes for it. Maybe you get onesies, twosies. Like, I remember reporting a while ago when, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against one of these, and, like, that was significant because she was, like, one of the first dams to break, and maybe on the GOP side. I'm not sure if maybe it had already started to break a little bit on the Democrat side of things, but it's just kind of one of those things, like, pretty much everybody voted for it. Yeah, here we are, 104 to 314, which is a defeat, but this is, compared to where things are, this is quite the sea change. And now this is almost entirely just Democrats, and you got 100 Democrats plus Thomas Massey, essentially, and then a couple other people. So, I mean, obviously, so if you look on the Democrat side of the aisle, it's kind of looking like damn near like a 50-50. That's quite a crack on the wall. Obviously, we're not seeing that in the Republican side of things, but I wouldn't be at least bit surprised if that changes as things go on. So, hell yeah. So that's cool. Hopefully, we keep seeing that trend move along that way. And then let's check in on that great old ally we were just talking about. Israel. State Department touts positive Rome talks, but Israel and Lebanon leave without timetable. State Department hosted talks between Israel and Lebanon were once again cheered by the State Department. This is on the 15th, a couple days ago, as productive and positive, which might explain why the U.S. has cheerfully hosted no less than 6 rounds worth of such talks, despite very little consequence ever coming out of them. Deal was reached naturally through the indications are that though the indications of the pilot zone framework agreed upon was the exact thing Israel had agreed to 3 weeks ago in the last deal and postponed immediately thereafter. There's once again, Israeli officials say, no timetable for actually starting the zones. The pilot zones were initially presented as symbolic and primarily something the Lebanese government could use to defend the increasingly unpopular deals. Israeli officials could present as proof they're giving Lebanon something in these talks. 2 zones were initially announced in the previous deal, though it was postponed, according to Netanyahu, because the U.S. and Lebanon weren't meeting unspecified obligations from a secret annex of the deal. Pilot zones were never meant to be functionally relevant, but they've become narratively so. The Rome embassy talks were indeed entirely about the pilot zones, with Israel initially trying to shrink the 2 zones into just one. In the end, the 2 zones remained, though reportedly only one of the zones is one that Israel is actually currently occupying, with the other pilot zone simply one that's sort of adjacent to Israeli-occupied parts of Lebanon. So these talks ended with basically the same deal the last talks did with respect to the pilot zones. While some officials are suggesting something unspecified could happen with respect to them in a matter of days, the focus seems to be demolition in the far south. Blasts continue to rock down the Marajun district, while more explosions were reported in and around Bint Jabil. Near Majdal Zun, Israeli troops opened fire on civilians attempting to reach their groves, which are on the town's outskirts, and roads were reportedly being bulldozed across the area. While Israeli officials are continuing to frame themselves of having no territorial ambitions on southern Lebanon and trying to sell this deployment as temporary, IDF veterans, however, who served in the last protracted occupation of southern Lebanon, see this as a remarkably familiar situation. Gili Shali was one of the several veterans quoted by Reuters, who said that occupation, which spanned 1982 to 2000, was also presented as necessary to protect northern Israel. Looking back, it was all fairy tales, he noted. More talks are expected. No signs anything's really going to come of them. I don't know why anyone would think anything would at this point. And then we have the following day, 2 killed is in a follow-up to this deal. I shouldn't laugh, but obviously in relation to the deal, it's a little bit absurd. So it kind of answers that question if this made a big deal at all. So Israel-Lebanon talks in Rome wrapped up Wednesday with claims of substantial progress made. And it gave way to a Thursday in which Israel substantially escalated their strikes. So airstrikes centered around Nabatea al-Faqwa, particularly the Al-Dair neighborhood. At least 2 people were confirmed killed in the airstrikes. Artillery strikes were reported elsewhere against southern Lebanon, and there are some as of yet unconfirmed reports of new strikes using white phosphorus shells against the towns of Kunin and Bet Yanun. Various deals between the Israel and Lebanese government have come and gone, and very little of consequence has resulted on the ground, as some of the hundreds of thousands of civilians displaced by the war try to return home. They face an uncertain future and widespread destruction that didn't end where they fled. Let's continuing on. Let's check in on Gaza. So we have an Israeli strike in Gaza kills mother, father, and their 6-year-old daughter. Isn't that just wonderful? That is just depressing, huh? Israeli strike on Wednesday hit an apartment in central Gaza, killing a man, his wife, and their 6-year-old daughter. Wow, you ever see those cute little meme things of little young family, kind of like a little girl or a little boy, and their young mommy and daddy, and they're kind of cutely eating at a table. Yep, just fucking kill them. Whatever meme, that little picture you're imagining, that probably cutesy meme that comes to mind. There's a few of them that come to mind like that. They killed them. The attack in Deir al-Balah also injured a boy who's the sole survivor of his family. The child is, so to add to the wrinkle to this, there's a boy as well. So there was a little boy who survived all this. So that's Wow. His whole family's gone. So there were 2 little kids. How to live without a father. The child is a lone survivor. How to live without a father, without a mother. What kind of cruelty is this? The people of Palestine, the people of Gaza are enduring, a relative told Reuters. Military took credit for the attack. Wow. Claiming without evidence that it targeted Hamas militant. That 6-year-old was concocting plans to take down Israel. Another Israeli strike hit the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood of Gaza City, killing at least 1 person and wounding several others. Okay, let's read the next story. We have more people dead since we missed a day. So there was a falling 5 people killed the next day. Attacks on Thursday killed at least 5 Palestinians. Medics told the Palestinian news agency WAFA that at least 3 people were killed by Israeli strikes in Gaza City, including 1 that was hit by Israeli artillery shelling in the southeastern Zaytun neighborhood, and 2 who were killed by an Israeli airstrike in the northeastern Tufa neighborhood. Reuters also reported they hit a tent encampment west of Gaza City, killing 1 person. So just dropping bombs on tents. Real great sport of them. So yeah, awful. What is this up to? This brings us up to 1,127 Palestinians killed since October, when this so-called ceasefire deal went into effect. And let's check in on what's going on with this so-called ceasefire deal and the many phases of it. This is what was supposed to be being pushed by the Board of Peace, but we have a piece here from The Guardian. It says Trump's Board of Peace drops the full Gaza recovery plan in favor of a tiny pilot scheme. So now some other thing, they just completely dropped that after that being the whole thing the whole time. So the Gaza recovery plan being pursued by Trump's Board of Peace has shrunk dramatically from an ambitious blueprint for the reconstruction of the whole territory to a small pilot project in the south of the Strip. Even the envisaged pilot scheme involving a temporary camp for a tiny fraction of Gaza's 2 million displaced people with the Palestinian administration, police, and a small international security force is not expected to take shape before the end of the year. So now, sounds like the U.S. is getting ready to do some concentration camps, because it's hard to keep track of all these things. I think it was the U.S., the Israel side of this was essentially basically saying they were going to do concentration camps way back when. And then we had this Board of Peace scheme, and there were these talks, this whole phased deal that, this will end with a 50, Israel gets half of it. And then there's this Palestinian side that has this weird technocratic scheme of some sort. And, anyway, so now we've gone to the point where now it's the U.S. It sounds like they're the ones that may actually be instituting something along the lines of a concentration camp of sorts. I think it was the Israeli, maybe it was the U.S. side. I'm having a hard time recalling the specifics. There's been so many different pushes for this thing, that thing. But I vaguely recall, I thought it was the Israeli that was pushing for that. I don't think it ended up happening. We had this Board of Peace scheme, this whole phased ceasefire deal that was supposed to end up being this 50-50 thing, essentially it was sort of proposing this vague, we're going to end up having something along the lines of a 2-state deal, essentially giving them a new government aside from Hamas, kind of giving them this own thing, moving the way this, essentially trying to make it amenable for the Hamas people. They're okay, this is moving the direction of Gazan sovereignty. Well, now it's looking like it's just going to be a little fucking camp. So, continuing on, incremental steps have been announced in recent weeks. A few Moroccan and Kosovo, God, why can't I get that word? Kosovan, I don't know, whatever. Officers have arrived. What do you call people from Kosovo? Kosovoan? I feel like it'd be Kosovoan. Kosovan? All right, whatever. Officers have arrived in Israel, where they are intended to be the kernel of an international stabilization force tasked with protecting the pilot camp, a logistic base for this future force to store vehicles, equipment, and other materials nearing completion for the Kerem Shalom crossing between Israel and Gaza. However, preparatory work on the pilot camp near the southern Gaza of city of Rafah has not begun, nor has the construction of the camp's ISF support base. Satellite images of the area show disturbed earth, but no new structures. Substantial progress is not expected before Israel holds elections on 27 October, which could bring down Netanyahu's far-right coalition government. Unfortunately, it looks like it could probably make it worse. I mean, although I don't have a firm grip on Israeli politics, Israel has routinely violated the Trump-brokered ceasefire since it was declared last October, blocked any reconstruction work, and severely limited flows of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Western diplomats in Jerusalem believe the best hope of progress in Gaza is a new Israeli government, but it is far from clear whether any successor coalition will be substantially more flexible. One diplomat in Jerusalem argued the BOP had no choice but to make the most of very limited progress. It's an admission of failure would open the way for extreme factions in the Israeli government with radically different plans for Gaza. The aim is just to keep something going, keep the ball in play, because you stop, there are others with a more extreme agenda just waiting to jump in and take over, and they are talking about wholesale population transfer and colonization. So sounds like they're kind of positioning themselves as like, oh, well, we're kind of holding back Israel here. And there might be truth to that, but like it's also like you are, in essence, sort of becoming complicit with it too. There's a growing apprehension that Netanyahu, facing the threat of electoral defeat, will gamble on all new offensive in Gaza before the October vote. Israel's carried out frequent strikes on Gaza, killing more than 1,100 Palestinians since the October ceasefire, and Israeli forces have repeatedly moved forward from the ceasefire line agreed in October, which split the strip roughly evenly between Israeli and Hamas-controlled sections. The Israeli army now directly occupies more than 60% of the territory and has created a buffer zone beyond that. So, I mean, you get the idea here. Let's move on. We got infringements upon Syria, which we've kind of talked about here and there, and I've kind of warned you that it's probably one of the next things that'll be trickling on up, and I have not been wrong so far. Israel is launching an increasing number of incursions into southwest Syria, targeting both the Quneitra and Dara governorates. At least 22 such incursions have already been documented so far this month, with more happening all the time. The highest profile incidents in recent days have been happening in Dara governorate around the village Amariya, which is in that little cusp of Syria between the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights and the Jordan border. Israel has been operating the area in growing numbers and has established multiple military outposts in Syria, one of which is down the road from Maria. Protesting the Israeli presence in the area, villagers had blocked the rural road with stones, which the IDF forces later cleared. Later reports also had Israeli troops attacking Maria outright, opening fire on the village homes with heavy machine guns. No details have yet emerged on any casualties from the attack, though homes were hit and it caused panic in the small village. In Quneitra, multiple raids have been reported over the past 2 days, including troops entering Basali village to search homes in Operation Imulaqua, which saw a temporary checkpoint established. The IDF checkpoints tend to quite temporary, often lasting only a few hours and seemingly accomplishing little but harassing passersby. One person was reported detained at the checkpoint, but he was released within the hour. And then we have Israeli Katz telling Pete Hegseth, that Israel won't withdraw from Gaza, Syria, or Lebanon, which normally these sort of things aren't significant, and a lot of times I just move on past these sort of stories because, like, this is what, the sort of things Katz, Smotrich, Gavir, these sort of things these guys say all the fucking time. And then you'll see usually like a couple weeks later, BBC say basically the same exact thing, maybe a little bit more judiciously. But this is unique in that, obviously it's Katz saying it to Hegseth, and on top of that, it's him basically kind of hitting every one of them in every quote, like Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. So Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz told Pete Hegseth in a call on Thursday that Israel won't withdraw from Gaza, Syria, or Lebanon, according to a statement from the Israeli minister's office. According to the Jerusalem Post, Katz emphasized Israel's determination to remain in security zones in Syria, Gaza, and Lebanon to protect Israel's borders and nearby communities from threats posed by jihadist forces. He added that Israel has never asked the U.S. to act in our place along our borders. We are committed to protecting the residents of Israel from every threat, and that is what we intend to do. So, pretty bleak, and it's looking like he's probably telling the truth. But with that, let's roll into the chat, say some more good mornings, and then we will get into the JD experience. So, let's check in on you beautiful people. Good morning, Tower Gang MPC. Good morning, good mornings. Woo, another dump. Good morning, guys. Good morning, good morning. Good to see you here. Good morning, Nevsky, saying believe all Iranian women. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Wokrike. We didn't blow those kids up. AI blew those kids up. Good morning. Good morning. User Chad Head says, thank you for talking. I do be talking. And good morning, Gotis. Good morning. Good morning. let's go ahead and get into the JD experience. I got a lot of clips for you guys. Like I said at the top of the show, JD Vance went back on Joe Rogan. I guess just kind of big picture before we get into the clips. A lot of people, it seems like there's been, obviously JD's kind of playing this like delicate little game here with these whole like different sides, the anti-war, pro-war. He's kind of playing both sides a little bit here, and I've seen a lot of people commenting on like kind of shitting on him and kind of being like, oh, almost as if this was somewhat a misstep, and that like in this podcast they did with Rogan, that this like, he essentially tried to appeal to both sides, I guess is essentially what I'm trying to say here. And a lot of people have kind of given shit for that. It's like you've kind of made nobody happy. And I don't know. I watched the whole podcast just because curious. I very rarely watch Rogan, but every now and then when it feels like it's significant, it's worthwhile, I will. It was not worthwhile, but I do think it was significant. It was super fucking boring. But I do think it's significant, this idea of like, especially in regards to the war and trying to play this, or the establishment, non-establishment forces trying to play both sides. I actually think, while I am not a fan and I am I'm fearful of this, I think he kind of did a good political job here. I think he did a good job of kind of allowing himself to become this like Rorschach test, to where like, regardless of which side of this you fall on, you could interpret that to be somewhat friendly to whatever your positions are, generally speaking. So like if you are a pro-war guy, he kind of left it in there in a way, spoke in certain ways where you could take that as like, well, okay, I think he's just being judicious here, and like, I know we might get back to war. But if you are anti-war, he did, or like say, the Epstein stuff, or many of the other things he talked about, there's a lot of things he did kind of do a good job of essentially throwing out this idea of like, I may not necessarily entirely agree with the things I am, maybe not that I'm saying, or how do I put this? Say, for example, the Epstein stuff. Like, just because, I guess the thing is, he's kind of seeded the idea, in my opinion, out there that like, he's essentially kind of divorced himself in rhetorically, to some regard, from Trump. I think he did a somewhat decent job in that here. Obviously, I don't agree. I don't believe it, but like, I'm just saying for like how convincing this would be to other people, or did he say the right words to kind of give himself an out on certain things? And I think he kind of did. I think he essentially did the whole like, as a vice president, my job is to like do yada yada yada. It's not to commentate on everything. Kind of making a point of that, essentially emphasizing that everything that's happening in this administration does not necessarily mean I agree. And then even then kind of it's emphasizing there may be things behind the scenes, like me. Like I know even with the war, in regards to the war, he did make a big deal about the fact that like, oh, like I'm saying things behind the scenes, like, people are even heavily implying and reporting what I'm saying, but he's kind of being vague about like what his actual true positions are, while kind of not really also being vague, if that makes sense. But yeah, anyways, so I think he actually did a pretty good job in that regards, politically speaking. I do find it interesting on the flip side of it, if we move the focus away from JD and you look at Joe, I find that to be more interesting. I think he really, like, I don't know. I mean, unless you're just completely on the team at this point, I really don't like. I think JD put on a good showing politically, where like, regardless if you're part of like some Shapiro faction or if you're part of some Tucker faction, you can find things you like. You can be like, I could work with this guy. And now I know Rogan's obviously not running for everything, but his whole thing is built on reputation. I mean, he's done lots of good podcasts, and a lot of people think of Rogan fondly because of that. He kind of, in the past had a little bit of a reputation of somewhat speaking truth to power, really shaking things up. But this Trump administration really did seem to get him in a bind. Especially how cozy he is with the Tealverse and the like. And this is exactly, if you're cynical about, Trump and not about Trump, well, I guess yes, Trump as well, but about Rogan and his connection to these people, or even just the tiniest bit cynical, it's like, this interview is pretty much exactly what you thought it was. There were so many opportunities to where, like, I guess, yes, I'm heavily embroiled in all this stuff. And so like almost every day, almost 5 days a week, roughly, I usually, we dig through foreign policy over here. So like, yeah, I probably could have really given JD a lot of shit. So it is like, but he didn't really do anything. It's just like, I guess my takeaway from this is like, I am of the opinion, and I was on the fence. I didn't really know. I kind of wasn't like 100% certain until like really for me, the turning point was the representative or the Anna Paulina Luna one, like that interview where I was like, dude, come on. Especially the moment in time when she came on, and then just even look at the interview. It's like, dude, he's just become this PR guy for the Trump administration. But this one is just taken to a parody level, really, where like, I don't know. It was pretty pathetic. I don't know if this is, I feel like this was signified some moment here. Like, I think for me, the Anna Paulina moment was the one for those really paying attention where you're like, yeah, he's there. He's compromised. And then it's this one that I feel like is like, maybe it's not really if we were to like mark, I really feel like this is, I don't know, I guess you can always pick a million different spots to go the beginning of the end, but this felt significant to me. This felt like he didn't really give much pushback of anything. It just very much came off as a boring PR podcast. They kind of did the same fucking gay tricks that he does whenever he tries to carry these lame, boring politician podcast. Like the same thing he sort of did with the Anna Paulina Luna one. Talked about aliens a bunch. So, I don't know. It's just kind of exactly what we expected. Now, so far as JD, I think this was a W. I think this was a mega L for Rogan. I don't know. I think I'll be interested to see what the media sphere shakes out going forward, because I just don't see Rogan as anything even close to resembling a serious force anymore. And I think that's how most people are going to really start seeing him. Because I've gone to the point where I almost never watch it aside from these cultural touchstone moments, I guess you could almost say. Like, I would call that this. Maybe not quite that. Or political touchstone moments. Like, I think it's politically significant, J.D. Vance going on Joe Rogan when essentially Trump is at the height of his unfavorability. Seems significant. And here we are. So, I don't know. Let's dig through some clips. As you're popping in here, though, help a brother out, hit that like button. But, yeah, let's watch a few clips. Here's him talking to... I guess continuing off of our foreign policy, let's kind of linger there for a little bit. Here's him talking about how they did a delicate diplomatic dance. How essentially the Iran war is a delicate diplomatic dance. So here you go. No, I didn't have
the president keeps.
I'm retarded. Give me a second. I did not have it up. Here you go.
So what is going on with Iran where it seems like the president keeps saying that a deal's been reached, negotiations have been successful, and then it all falls apart and we start bombing them again?
Yeah, so how long do we have here? Because this is a long conversation.
As much time as you need.
So I have to explain a couple of things in the background so you sort of fully appreciate, people fully appreciate what's going on here. So number one, it's a bit of a simplification, but you have two elements within the Iranian system. You have, and you sometimes hear hawkish Americans say this, that they're all crazy people. They want to bring about, the 12th Imam and the apocalypse and all that stuff. Right. There are people in Iran who believe that. They're also pragmatists. So you've got the crazy people, you've got the pragmatists, okay? So when we struck this MOU, and really what the MOU says, and it was misrepresented more than almost anything that I've ever worked on in public life. What it says is Iran is going to open the Strait of Hormuz, the violence is going to stop, and then we're going to negotiate to see if we can come to a broader deal on the long-term nuclear issue. That's what we wanted. And what the Iranians wanted, of course, was long-term economic and sanctions relief. Now, here's the problem with where we are right now. And I guess my summary view, Joe, is that I, of course, can't predict the future. I don't know exactly where this is going to go. But I think fundamentally we are on the right trajectory. It's just going to be really messy, and there's going to be a lot of stops and starts. So what happens? The first week after we sign the MOU, we get 20 million barrels a day of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what it was before the war. The price of oil comes way down, and there are elements, the hardliners in the Iranian system kind of freak out a little bit. They're like, oh shit, did we just give away our major leverage point? Screw nuclear weapons, we just gave away the SO in this MOU. And so there was this kind of freak out in their system. So they shot at a couple ships. We responded. And I think that's entirely appropriate, of course. If they're going to shoot at ships, we are going to shoot at the people who are shooting at the ships, or we're going to destroy the facilities that they're using to shoot at ships. So that happens. Okay, and then the Iranians are like, oh, no, fine. You're right. We shouldn't have been shooting at ships. So then they come back to the table. And there's a few more days of negotiation. And then the phase that they're in right now is the hardliners have really, really reacted strongly to all the oil that's coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. And they've basically said, we're going to try to shut this thing down. We're scared about losing our leverage. Now, the pragmatists in their system are saying this was a mistake. Let's keep on talking. And again, do I know how this is ultimately going to shake out? Of course I don't. But what we're doing is a delicate diplomatic dance where we're using economic leverage points, we're using carrots and sticks, we're trying to talk to the pragmatists, and then of course when they commit acts of violence, we're responding to it. And all those things are happening simultaneously to get us on a better trajectory. Now, that said, yes, right now they're shooting right now. Last night they shot at some ships. But with all that said, is their nuclear program still destroyed? Yes. Are the straits not necessarily fully pre-war traffic, but are we getting enough oil and gas out of the Strait of Hormuz to prevent a worldwide energy crisis? Yes. And all of these things are happening in the context of the broader negotiation over the nuclear program. You never know where this is ultimately going to end up, but that's where we are.
All right, and here's another clip, him describing himself as a real. I don't really have anything to add to that. Obviously, I kind of disagree with it. But I mean, the way he was kind of talking throughout that episode seemed kind of odd, because it was like basically Rada's hostilities had already gone into place. So he's kind of talking about his diplomacy and how he's essentially aiming towards future diplomacy and yada yada. Meanwhile, Trump's already making all these overtures, being very bombastic. I mean, to be fair, like, I guess that's kind of what they say, kind of how they, understand Trump is like, oh, he's the one who kind of shakes things up rhetorically, and here we come in here, and we'll do the diplomacy on the back end. That's what it kind of comes off as. But I don't know, it just came a little bit, little weak. I mean, hell, even there at the end, like, what kind of a week? Like, oh, here we are. Like, I mean, let's watch the last like 30 seconds, because how did he essentially frame the situation of what we have ended up in, which did seem to be kind of like, oh, well, we're in a situation where it's not like pre-war, but like we can get enough in, and like just a real copy comes off as. If it'll play, maybe not. Maybe we won't rewatch it. Oh, what is going on here? Well, never mind. It's being glitchy. All right, let's move on. I don't know what the hell that was about. So let me try that again one more time. Let me try that. I don't care. Whatever. I just, obviously at the end he's restating the end state of where we're at. I was just trying to get all the little details, get it right. Not misquote him there, but yeah, kind of came off as pathetic. All right, let's move on. Here we go. Here is more on him talking about essentially him describing himself as a reasonable moderate. Kind of what I was talking about, where he's kind of trying to give a little bit of something to both sides here. Hey, StreamYard, give me one moment. Sorry. Of course, it's giving me issues. Here we go. All right, let's try this. Here you go.
Being funded to tank the very deal that I was pursuing. And oh, by the way, many of the people who were receiving that money were actually attacking me in completely dishonest ways. My response to that is, well, go to hell. I'm going to do what I have to do for the American people. I represent Americans first, and that's the way that I've tried to do this job. And Joe, the crazy thing is, I'm like, people don't realize this. I'm actually in this, there's this massive pro-Israel, anti-Israel debate in the United States of America. I'm like the reasonable moderate. And I think that's what so many people don't realize is, I've been accused of being an anti-Semite. I've been accused
for what reason?
Quite literally for, I've been accused of trying to, I guess, some people say that I've insulted the Jewish religion, which is insane. Like,
God forbid.
Like I have a ton of respect for the Jewish religion.
But
I mean, if you talk about...
What specifically did you say?
I don't know. I've never heard a good, compelling argument for why I'm an anti-Semite, even though I've been accused of being an anti-Semite by many people. But what I say to these guys is, look at public opinion, look at the way young Republicans versus Republicans over the age of 65 approach this issue, like right now, Israel is losing the public opinion battle in the United States of America. It is a simple and obvious fact. Donald Trump has said that publicly. It's a simple and obvious fact.
Why do you think that is?
Well, let me finish this point.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my attitude is towards this is Israel is an ally. Like France or like the United Kingdom, we're going to have disagreements with them. We're going to have agreements with them. There are areas where we're going to have similar interests and areas where our interests are going to diverge. So my approach to this is to say, you know what? When we're partnered, great, let's work together. And we're not, let's just be honest about it. And for that, people attack me for being an anti-Semite or anti-Israel, and they don't see the writing on the wall that I'm actually just the guy advocating for a normal relationship with a normal country that's based around shared interest as opposed to based around, something else. So why is Israel losing American public opinion?
Well, the narrative is that Israel has a very disproportionate effect on American politics.
Yeah, I see that. I see that narrative. I mean, I actually think that look, do they try to influence American politics? Yes. But like I said earlier, a lot of other countries do. I think
to the extent that Israel does,
I think some are better at it than others. I think the Israelis are definitely more effective at it than most, but I wouldn't say that they're the only effective country by any means that tries to influence American politics. I just think you have to be self-aware about it. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's a country of 9 million people. We have 330 million people. And so, of course, they're going to try to persuade Americans. They're going to try to move Americans in one direction or another. I think that's just the nature of the beast.
But it's more than that. The concern is that they're spying on American politicians, that there's concerns about funding, there's concerns about influence, there's concerns about whether or not politicians whether they're aligned with Israel or whether they're aligned with the United States first.
Well, there's certainly, I definitely get those concerns, but my sense is that the way that all foreign influence works in the United States is people try to manipulate American public opinion, and then from manipulating a public opinion, they try to get the outcomes that they want. I mean, this thing is a very good example of.
Yeah, see what I mean? I gotta say, pretty skillfully threaded that line. Just kind of essentially kind of being coming off as the adult in the room when it comes to dealing with Israel. So gotta say, from a political perspective, well done. Good way of dealing with it. Yes, I know there's gonna be a lot of Israel sycophants who inevitably will get mad about the way he's framing this, as if they're not the greatest ally ever. But at the end of the day, let's be real. He ends up doing what they want anyways. But he's just kind of framing this as like a. Kind of being more grown up, having a more sophisticated perspective when it comes to Israel, seeing them as just one of these other ones, which kind of seems to fit into this new aid to partnership vibe that Netanyahu is going with. So I mean, Vance isn't even really outside of that. I could totally see him selling that as well. But either way, well done from Vance in that regard. Well, a political nut washing would not be complete from Joe Rogan without some retarded drivel about aliens. I'm not going to make you guys watch all of this, but figure at least give you a taste, maybe throw it on 2X for a couple minutes. Here's JD Vance and Joe Rogan arguing about whether they're demons or whether they're aliens, because that's really what we fucking care about here.
He said something that I thought was very odd.
Which, by the way, let me actually back up before anybody goes, whoa. Well, but it's J.D. Vance. He's the vice president of the United States. He has access to all sorts of information in the world. Well, he spent a good, probably 10 minutes, essentially caveating all of that and be like, whoa. I know we're going to talk about aliens, but I'm very clear I'm coming from no position of anything whatsoever. I always say I'm going to dig into it, but then I never fucking do. So, which, to some degree, good. I guess, I don't really... But it's also then why the fuck are we wasting 20 minutes on Joe Rogan talking about, well, I think they may be demons. And honestly, I gotta say, Vance kind of came off like a fucking retard on that one. This is the one thing Rogan really got gay about and was pushing back on. And it was, and I will give him, I think he was actually kind of correct because it was this whole a lot of people have seen this idea thrown around where it's oh, the aliens are demons. And it's and so the line Vance goes is well, okay, well, let's say any if when I come into my room and my dog's there and I turn the light on, it's to him it's like I'm a god. And so like wouldn't that be kind of like the same thing? And which yeah, sure, I get the idea he's going with, but then Rogan goes like, okay, but you're not a god, and we know that. Like so like you're literally not. I understand like from the perspective of the dog you are the god, but you're saying that these things are demons, and your argument is like, well, but from our perspective they're so advanced. So like, but isn't that saying you're saying they're not demons? Because it's like it's a whole other thing if they're demons. Now it's connected to this whole thing about God, and you have this whole other. Or are you saying there's a biological something or other? And you're like, well, what I'm saying is we're just so beyond our... And like, yeah, we've all heard that fucking quote. Cool. Congrats. So that's the crux of all of this. I kind of actually sort of lean towards Rogan, but it's such a stupid fucking nitnoid point that like, who fucking cares? But here you go. Here's a piece of that.
You said
this is the one thing where Rogan's chest puffed out a little bit here. So here you go.
Thing that I thought was very odd. Okay, you said that you thought that they were demons.
Okay, I did say that.
What did you mean by that?
Well, first of all, they're not just in Christianity, but in a number of world religions. There are a number of mystical things that happened, extra-dimensional, I'm not one of these people who's like a hyper-rationalist. Like I think that there are things happening in the world that we're not always seeing. I believe in God. I think that there is a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not extra-real.
Supernatural.
Supernatural. There are supernatural things that are happening. Okay. So if you look historically at, things that are similar to the alien phenomenon, where, some like strange being, it kind of looks like a human being, but doesn't look like, but it's not human. And it shows a particular interest in human beings. And then it takes the human beings and, does weird experiments on them. I think my argument is that's either bullshit, right? You're either talking to a crazy person, which I'm not saying just because I believe in supernatural doesn't mean I believe in everything supernatural. But if we're talking about an extraterrestrial being that is human-like, but not human, that contains effectively infinite powers and is torturing human beings, you can call it an alien if you want, but I think there's a lot of historical precedent to call that a demon.
Well, a lot of these stories and these accounts,
we have one right now.
Demonic alien, yeah, that's the mothership logo. A lot of these accounts are not of people being tortured. They're people that are being exposed to information, like the Travis Walton story is a very famous case from the 1970s.
Read about on the way back, though.
This guy right here. I got a Travis Walton all there. He's one of the most famous UFO abduction stories.
Okay.
There's a movie with D.B. Cooper in the...
and what is the information that they gave Travis Walton?
Was D.B. Cooper that was the D.B. Sweeney. D.B. Cooper was the guy who stole the money and jumped out of the plane. Fire in the Sky. There's a movie.
Oh, of course, yeah, I remember this movie. I never saw it, though.
1993. Good movie, but sensational. And Travis Walton says they made a bunch of shit up, and that's not what happened. But
yeah,
the story was that he was a logger in Arizona, and he was leaving a job. They were all together in a truck, and these loggers saw this light, land in this forest, and they went to go investigate. He jumps out of the truck, and he gets close to it, and he's hit by some beam of light and knocked to the ground. They take off, and then they realize, we've got to go back. We don't know what's going on. They turn around. They go back to get him. They freak out and panic. They go back to get him. He's gone. The police interview them. They think that they killed him. There's an investigation. 5 days later, he shows up wearing the same clothes, and he has this crazy story. And he'd been in...
All right, are you bored yet? I sure as shit am. All right, you get an idea of what a lot of this is. And the tricks are becoming painfully transparent at this point. Just talk about just boring fucking drivel. Like none of these political fucking. I mean, this is kind of damn near almost a good sign of like when you've just kind of, I don't know, how do I put this? You cashed in, or maybe not cashed in. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I guess sold out. I guess maybe not even quite is what I'm saying. Generally speaking, like if you're having politicians, I mean, I guess that's a kind of a wide range. But generally speaking, you're getting politicians on the show. I think that's kind of typically the moment. So, and I mean, you have the fucking vice president of the United States. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, I get it. Everyone handles things different. And in some regards, I'm actually glad this interview happened. I wouldn't want it to not happen, I guess. It's better to have more information than less. And then also even that, just revelatory. But it's just, I don't know. It's just really pathetic from that side of it for me. But I guess more to these kind of cheap tricks. They took a little bit of time kind of musing about communism, which I find quite hilarious coming from Joe Rogan, who's fucking economically illiterate, and then the vice president of the Trump administration, considering it's basically their fucking fault. Everybody thinks commie shit is so in vogue right now, so congrats. It's literally your fault. But here is them going on a little bit about the new Mom Donnie sort of movement and just being concerned about what this means for young people. Now, to be very clear, I actually generally sort of agree with them in a larger sense here. I don't like, how this is going to affect the general public, how they're going to see this as like, oh, well, we'll all just get in on government and we'll use it to our benefit, kind of the commie route. But, like, I mean, you're all fucking commies, I guess, is kind of my perspective. So here we go.
Those fucking people scare me. I'm really concerned that people think that's a good idea, and that they think that socialism just hasn't been done correctly. That drives me nuts, because I think a lot of like really well-intentioned, really kind and empathetic young people think that that's the way to go. And I do not think they understand the dangers of this ideology, because it always leads to one thing. It leads to a very powerful military government that controls the population, period. End of discussion. And if you play it out, it is literally the only way they can get people to give up their money.
Yes.
It's the only way they can get them to give up their property. And when you're hearing like Mamdani talk about freezing rents and taking bad landlords and then confiscating their property, you're like, this is step one of what's happened in every communist dictatorship throughout history. This is what happened in North Korea. Give the government the land, and we'll make sure that no one ever has to worry about food. What a great idea.
Yeah, man.
Look how it turned out.
All right, so there's them talking about communism. Now, I will just go ahead and say, just throwing it out there, buckle up. You're going to get a whole lot more of this sort of commentary going forward. I mean, this is going to be the messaging, I think, going into these midterms. Is just going to be kind of the communism angle. That's going to be like, hey, we don't want to devolve into communism. This is going to be the move going forward. This is how they've essentially pivoted from the affordability crisis messaging the left has given us. This is kind of the counterbalance to them. Like, well, you're just fucking commies. And to that point, here's Mike Johnson basically saying that this is part of a larger speech he gave recently, very much in this sort of this vein of thinking. Ironically, requesting $350 billion to fight communism. Communism, the thing where the whole idea is we take everything from everybody, we divide it up evenly. And so for that, we're going to take a little bit from everybody and we're going to throw it into a pot to fight this idea of taking everything from everybody and throwing it into a pot. So, yeah, just real great stuff here, guys. But here you go.
There's been a lot of discussion about what's going to be included in this reconciliation bill. Can you walk through how important and how imminent it is that the Pentagon needs additional funding and what that number precisely is going to be in the reconciliation bill?
So the question was, can you list the specifics of what the request is for the Pentagon? We've seen it's over $350 billion as a request, and some of this is transformational kind of funding that will help us change the dynamic of the Department of War and make it more efficient and effective. It's already the greatest fighting force on the planet, not even close. But there are some ideas, a real vision on how to improve that even further, to bolster that. You've heard the president talk about how he wants to effectively double the funding for national defense. Look, we live in dangerous times. We're fighting communism on our own shores, and we're fighting evil terrorists and tyrants around the world. And we have to be able to protect our national security. So this is not the place to get into the details of that.
There's been a lot of discussion.
All right, well, it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all lame. There was some semi-decent commentary thrown in there. Interesting new stuff in the... It's not new. New's not the right way to frame it here, but some interesting stuff from Vance on the Epstein front. He very much is still kind of leading into this, like, oh, we really mishandled this kind of angle. Like that's the way he's taking it, kind of leading into this idea of like, yeah, that Epstein really is a problem. He's kind of, very much sort of the opposing messaging to Trump's like, oh, it's a hoax. I mean, he comes in and explains, oh, this is what Trump means when he says it's a hoax. And he's the one kind of granting, believability into this, kind of the idea of like, oh, he was awful. Kind of just saying a lot of stuff that, other people aren't really willing to say. So I do think this does give him some political credibility for those, going forward for possible future presidential races. The perception that like, oh, geez, this guy's actually willing to say some of those tough truths. Knowing that these are things that like everyone kind of knows anyways. Maybe this is just a function of him being a younger politician. He just knows, where the wind's blowing. I don't necessarily think it's all that brave, messaging, but when you compare it to the boomers that he's around, I know I see it as more just pragmatic messaging for this moment. But either way, here's him talking about Epstein's connection to the highest level of American intelligence and the highest levels of Israeli intelligence.
Dude who knew everybody. He knew everybody. So, look, dude who knew everybody. He knew everybody. So, look.
So where did his money come from?
Well, from given part of it is suspect tax advice and setting up tax schemes for a lot of very, very rich people.
Right, but why was he
possibly
motivated to influence academia, and what was the purpose?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I have theories. There's of course the...
Well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country. Or both. You know, look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across the board. Like, he had Republican friends. He had.
By the way, this is bullshit. This is a stupid line. I don't know. This almost feels like a backing up, like, because he even just kind of there said it a little bit. I forget exactly how he said it. Kind of the idea of it's kind of pervasive on both sides here in the States, but then he goes, "Oh, it's kind of weird. It's a little bit more on the left over in Israel. Isn't that funny?" But for one, you're comparing, these are apples and oranges, looking at the so-called left and the right of Israel and the so-called left and the right of the United States. We're talking about entirely different paradigms. This is why the left-right thing is so fucking stupid. I don't even really know what, like, the commonly accepted, like, what we're going with when we're talking left and right when it comes to Israel. Generally speaking, my understanding is the right usually tends to be far more hawkish when it comes to I guess you could say foreign/domestic policy, since pretty much all of their so-called foreign policy is basically domestic, since it's like right outside their borders, or, you know, that they are sort of within their so-called state that they are occupying. So that's generally my understanding. But either way, completely different paradigm. Also not fucking true. Like, sort of true, but not really. It's one of those things that, like, yeah, if you have, I think it's almost like I said, it's a kind of a backing up, I guess, you know, a limited hangout, I guess you could say. Because it used to be the line, it'd be like, do you see how much he's palling around with the left? We don't really see that on the right. And then now it's become, oh, well, you see how much he's palling around with the left in Israel? Like, so it's like, this is, but even then, that's not really true. Yes, it's sort of true, but if you are someone who's not paid attention, because it is kind of very niche, like into the specifics of, like, how close was he to people and, you know, to the political factions of Israel. But I mean, hell, he's like, I remember I've seen sources where he supposedly was able to get Netanyahu to show up for events and stuff like that. So it goes both sides here. It's beyond just that. Like essentially, Ehud, he was basically the guy Ehud came to, Ehud Barak, former prime minister, when he was like, hey, I'm coming out, I need to set up something. So he's like kind of the public-private guy. He's the guy that kind of sets up these new things for these people. He's kind of, you know, hooking them up. He knows the deal. Like, all right, you're out of politics now. This is what you're going to do. Like, he was the fixer there. It definitely, I think he transcends the left-right divide even over in Israel. But continuing on, let's see. There's another clip of him talking about. So his is him. I guess just more to more to the commentary on how I do think he kind of did a fairly. I don't know if I'd say masterful. That definitely is saying way too much. A fairly decent, about as decent as you're going to do given the circumstances, job in a kind of political posturing here. So the talk, what we're talking about here is essentially the Epstein cover-up. And he's done a very good job of essentially seeing it as like, okay, well, that was we fucked up, we bungled, but it was all in good faith, and, you know, maybe did some bad things along the way. Like, so this is how he is handling it. So And I think it's a fairly decent line for what he's dealing with, because he can't really. This is probably the strongest pushback he's going to be able to give. And I think this will probably it could pay off for him in the future when people are eyeing him for other political stuff. And you're like, well, he was kind of alluding to these are his positions. And that he wasn't really happy with the way things went down. I mean, we've covered in this show some of the reports behind the scenes, and the way that's always sort of shown is that JD was like the loud voice behind the scenes, like, come on, we got to get all this info out, yada, yada, yada. Like, he was really trying to make it happen. That's the way it's at least, it's shown for us from the outside looking in. Anyway, here's him. I just want you guys will see how he's framing this whole, what we would call a cover up, but he's framing it as something else.
Again, say this with all candor, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said, the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were standing in front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So here's, let me try to defend.
What was the purpose of that performative display of the Epstein files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think was happening, look, I know Pam, I like Pam. I don't think there was anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me, like you.
Well, there you go. Just kind of putting a lot of the blame still back on Bondi, so which is to be expected. She's out of here. Why not? Why wouldn't you? But even then, done in a way that comes off as professional and friendly. So I think pretty well done. And then kind of finishing off this Epstein coverage in regards to JD. Here's one of those situations where, to me, it kind of comes off as doth protest too much. You'll see what I mean.
What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007. Now, again, in our defense, yes, was there some bitching and moaning, and was there some back and forth? Yes. But we eventually collected 6 million documents as part of the effort. People say the president was forced into releasing the documents. Again, the idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke. He absolutely could have killed it.
By the way, that is a joke. But
what did he do? He actually said, "Nope, we're going to release these files." He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, do I think there is I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence that the President of the United States engaged in wrongdoing with minors.
All right, so there you go. Just a little bit doth protest too much. Never seen him do anything. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe not. But there is reason for suspicion for sure. I don't know if you guys remember this blast for the past, this Guardian piece from 2020, where he judged the world's biggest modeling competition. So this right here, scores of teenage girls in evening dresses and miniskirts, some as young as 14, dancing under disco lights. Could have been a high school prom were it not for the crowd of older men surrounding them. As the evening wore on, some of the men, many old enough to be the girls' fathers or even grandfathers, joined them on the dance floor, pressing themselves against the girls. Now, in 92, he hosts this competition. In 1991 as well. This was hosted by John Casablancas. He was one of the 10 judges. Now, there was a 14-year-old, or one who was 14-year-old time, Shauna Lee, recalls how the contestants were encouraged to parade downstairs one by one and dance for Trump, Casablancas, and others. Another one was 15. Members being asked to walk for Trump, Casablancas, and other men on the boat. She said this wasn't being judged or part of the competition. It was for their entertainment. Casablancas, for those who are, many of you guys may remember, he was living with, I think, a 16-year-old for a period of time. So it's not even really like, it's basically beyond the point of, I guess, allegations. Not a good look. What else do we have here? There was a lot of crazy claims in here. There was one, I guess, during one of these. Oh, never mind. That's something from a photo shoot with Casablancas. So there's this whole piece going into this whole modeling age, to this teen modeling stuff. Essentially the connections here. We've covered this in the past. I'll give it a retweet. That way you guys can see it. Here's pictures of Ivanka Trump, which I always feel gross even showing these. This is her from her modeling days, which was back to the age of 13, which was under the tutelage of John Casablancas, who is, the guy I just talked about a moment ago. So here's Ivanka as a young girl taken with photo shoots. I did you guys the service of blurring out some of the stuff because I don't know how these things are even allowed. It's borderline child porn, some of the stuff here. Even more so, here's a couple things I screenshotted in one of my tweets in the past. Here's late 1970s Trump befriended elite model management founder John Casablancas. They met through Roy Cohn. Trump's greatest connection to New York's wealthiest high-profile figures. Roy Cohn, notorious for running blackmail rings as well. And then here's just a quick little grok summation. It says Casablancas was known for engaging in sexual relations with young models, some of whom were teenagers. His public affair with 16-year-old Stephanie Seymour when he was 42 ended his second marriage. Lawyers for Carrie Sutton claimed in legal documents his relationship with Seymour began when she was 14 and constituted statutory rape. Casablancas and others involved with the Elite's annual modeling competition were accused of using the event to engage in sexual relationships with vulnerable young models, some of whom were teenagers. That was the one I was just talking about. I know there were some other crazier claims in there, but I wasn't going to pick through the piece with you guys there and waste all your time. And then also Cohn as well, the guy he was widely known to be gay and engaged in behavior that leveraged his sexuality for influence. He was linked to operating or participating in prostitution rings, including the use of underage male prostitutes, notably at the Blue Suite in the Plaza Hotel. That's what many people may recall that from. And even more so, more Gronk said, when was the media scandal concerning Casablancas having an affair with a minor, thus causing his divorce? This affair surfaced around 1987 and 98. So now, when did Ivanka come to be a model for John Casablancas? The point being here is, like, some people are like, well, okay, well, how would Trump know that, or when was this? Well, Ivanka began modeling for Casablancas in 95 when she was 14. Said 13 in the other one, but no, 13, 14. So this was a good 7 years after these supposed accusations. So not looking good. And then even furthermore, here's an FBI report that Epstein introduced Melania to Donald Trump. And we also have the Zampoli guy we've talked about numerous times. The FBI report also states Zampoli was trying to buy the agency Elite Models with Jeffrey Epstein. Zampoli is actually a member of Trump's cabinet. For those who aren't aware, he's an ambassador to somewhere, I forget where. The part that's damning is Epstein introducing Melania to Donald Trump and not Zampoli being the one to do so like he claims. Also included the victim's written statement. So I don't think this is stuff. This is I think this one's might be from actually the Epstein files, but the other one wasn't. So this is like pre-Epstein files stuff. I mean, you don't even really need the Epstein files. But I don't know, to me, these Epstein files seem to be pretty damning. Maybe not damning. I mean, there's a lot of allegations in there. I mean, we covered recently the show, Graham Plattner dropped out of his race in Maine on far less than is just in the files on Trump. There's one allegation on Plattner and of rape and he's out. There are multiple within the Epstein files for Trump. Obviously, these are just allegations. Doesn't mean it's true. I mean, there is an outside possibility, but let's be real. I can't get over this. Like, people always like, oh, there's no way. Are you kidding me? I mean, he said on fucking Howard Stern. Trump has said on Howard Stern about when these when I think it was Miss Teen America that he ran or whatever, how since he owned the competition, how he would just go into the changing rooms and kind of be like the creepy guy, like, hey ladies, like, and yeah, I know it's Howard Stern, you do ham it up, you get a little goofy with it, but I've seen the clip. I don't think it didn't come off as a lie. It did come off as like a braggadocious sort of thing. It didn't come off as one of those jokes that was just completely made up out of whole cloth fiction. Seemed pretty legit to me. But with all this too, we had, like I said, we had JD going on Rogan, but right around the same time, later in the afternoon, we also had Donald going on TV addressing the nation. I didn't watch it, but here's a little clip giving us a little bit of a breakdown. I heard it was mostly on election stuff and was somehow even more boring than the JD interview. But here's a little clip from Trump himself. Here you go.
The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past.
All right, so a whole bunch of talk about election chicanery. Seems a little suspicious to me, just a wee bit, as we're getting ready to go in these midterms, and we're dealing with an administration here that's, like, I think controlling basically everything right now, and getting ready to probably control a whole lot less. And all due to their own fucking fault and fucking everything up. So, but yeah, obviously getting ready to, they stole the election, Or even more concerning, perhaps there could be some sort of election steal move on their part or something. We'll see. But let's, here's Massey, summing this up a little bit for us. Figured we'd get a little bit from him. Here you go.
The president's going to be making a speech to the nation tonight in which he's going to outline alleged fraud in the 2020 election. We had Jay Clayton, who wants to be the new DNI, up in the Senate yesterday, incapable of saying that Joe Biden won the election in 2020. Has the president just convinced himself that he won the election, even though he knows that he didn't? There's no evidence there. And why does he keep going back to this?
We're pushing the SAVE Act, Republicans are, which would require ID to vote and to be an American citizen, and I support that. But I don't think the problem, is that our elections aren't secure, because we control the House, we control the Senate, we control the White House, and in some degree we control the Supreme Court. So I asked my Republican colleagues, why are you complaining about election fraud? We won all the damn elections. The fraud that's going on is we're not holding ourselves to the promises that we made of fiscal responsibility, putting America first, making America healthy. The problem is we're wasting the opportunity that we were given in these elections, that we won, all of them.
Massey nailed it pretty well there, and I think it's actually puts a pretty good little period on the end of the segment altogether, kind of indicative of even Vance and Trump. This is your own goddamn fault, guys. Enjoy wallowing in it. With that, let's roll through the chat one more time. I think I'll do the last segment. The last segment's a little bit on the shorter side. I think I can knock it out in a short time. Maybe a little bit longer episode. We'll see. But I was considering dropping it, but I'm not going to push it 2 days in a row. So we'll get through the Israeli MAGA influencer op segment here in a second after we roll through you good people's chats. I forgot to say good morning to you, Bug Fights. I saw you earlier in the chat. I don't know. I thought I had already said good morning to you. I just realized that a little bit ago during one of these clips, I had not. So I'm sorry, my good friend. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Kubert reminding us Vance is still a faggot and Pierre Teal's meat sock. You are correct. Let me see. Good morning. Tilla Spooks says, what have I missed? Just a bunch of JD clips. Nothing too crazy. Still also saying socialism has only worked one time in history, and it's because nationalism was the precursor. I don't agree, but I can giggle at that. That is for sure. Kubert says, I wonder if Epstein Island and all that shit could have been just part of the script. Every saga needs a villain, and that's what it feels like this shit is. Yeah, you got a good point. Could have something to do with it. I don't know. Or villains are just cool. Or not villains, islands. Kubert also says, my wife used to model with John Casablanca. Fucking just flexing on the chat here. I'm banging a model. Good for you. And as I would tell her how weird these people were, because I would go with her, and it was just weird. I could feel the energy. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's got to be a skeevy industry. I still can't get over people who do the child modeling stuff. Like, it's just such a bizarre industry. I can kind of get as adults, but even still gross. All right, let's get into got one more. Fire Pixie's flirting with me again. Glasses look good on you, you beefy boy. Thank you. Well, they look good with shorter hair. They do not look with longer hair, but yes, I do think they look good on me. I right now at this point in time, I think I do look cute. I appreciate the compliments. Let's go ahead and get into our final segment of the day. The Israeli MAGA influencer op. You thought you escaped the JD clips. You were wrong. I have one more for you, although it's a perfect lead up into this. This is a part of why we got to cover it today. JD made a point of addressing the recent scandal with Brad. I think it's Brad Parscale is the guy's name, the former campaign manager for Trump, who's now running an Israeli influence op. Receiving millions of dollars essentially to utilize influencers to advertise or try to, give a better, essentially up the PR for Israel, kind of like Victor was doing at the beginning. Not so well though. And JD jumped and essentially brought this up essentially in regards to his attempt at peacemaking and how there are these many people getting in the way and how these are, some of these people are people directly receiving money from Israel. So he referenced this very thing. So with that, here you go.
But I definitely think you have seen this very discreet, extremely well-funded campaign to try to derail the negotiation and try to derail the deal. And, there's this Time article that came out yesterday. A friend sent it to me. It's like worth reading because it lists a bunch of people who have quite literally been paid by a former Trump campaign person who was himself paid by certain elements within the Israeli government. And those people are attacking me viciously for quite literally trying to accomplish the negotiation objective that the president set for the country. So
what is their position? Like, are they attacking you how?
Oh, it's social media posts. It's, they're leaking to reporters. They're attacking me obsessively, saying that we should not be negotiating with Iran. We should just keep the military campaign going indefinitely. And that is their explicit position. And coming after me saying that, people have come after me and said that I'm influenced by Qatar, that I'm influenced by foreign governments, that, I take my marching orders from Tucker Carlson. And there's just so much bullshit out there when what I'm actually trying to do is accomplish what the President of the United States told me to accomplish, which is a settlement of this that accomplishes our objectives. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. We have the free flow of oil and gas. And like, I should be clear, I don't actually mind. I don't mind that let's say certain elements of the Israeli government want to criticize the deal or have disagreements about the deal. I don't even mind an effort to try to influence, foreign governments try to influence the United States all the time. Israel does it, other countries do it. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. What bothers me is actually when Americans meaning American leadership, allows that influence to affect their judgment and to affect what they are advocating for. That's what really bothers me. People are always going to try to influence the United States of America, whether they're allies of ours or whether they're enemies of ours. But again, when I open up the pages of Time magazine and I see that there's a literal foreign influence campaign being funded to tank the very deal that I was pursuing, and oh, by the way, many of the people who were receiving that money were actually attacking me in completely dishonest ways, my response to that is, well, go to hell. I'm going to do what I have to do for the American people. I represent Americans first.
All right, well, let's go ahead and crack open the pages of that timepiece. The vice president himself was just referencing. Here is a piece over at time.com. Trump's ex-campaign manager is running an Israeli influence operation targeting the MAGA base. Let's get through this. It says, after the U.S. and Iran agreed to a ceasefire deal on June 17th, a senior U.S. official was monitoring the online reaction when they noticed something surprising. Trump's aides had expected his supporters to celebrate the agreement. Instead, online influencers in Trump's MAGA movement were excoriating it on social media. One shared an Israeli op-ed titled, "You could have been the greatest president of all, but you failed." Several posted the same video of Qatar's prime minister appearing to snub JD in Israel, arguing it showed regional powers, dismissing the Trump administration's naivete. Others accused Trump of surrendering before achieving his stated objective of eliminating Iran's nuclear program. Many of the posts appeared almost simultaneously with similarities in language and tone. The official began collecting screenshots and came to believe it wasn't a coincidence, tracing tweets by prominent members of the online right. The official came to believe there was an unlikely figure at the center of all this criticism: Trump's former presidential campaign manager and digital guru, Brad Parscale. Last September, the global ad agency Havas hired Parscale's firm Clock Tower X to conduct a digital campaign on behalf of the State of Israel. According to Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, filings reviewed by Time, under the agreement, Parscale's operation would produce 100 original pieces of content each month, with at least 80% aimed at Gen Z's audiences across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and podcasts. In the services agreement draft included in the filing, Parscale also pledged to amplify the campaign across social media and through integration of narrative messaging into Salem Media Network properties and aligned distribution channels, referring to the Christian Conservative Broadcasting and Publishing Company, where he serves as Chief Strategy Officer. Parscale vowed the effort would produce at least 50 million digital impressions per month, as well as influence how AI tools such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, and Google's Gemini characterize Israel in the war. For all this, Israel agreed to pay Clock Tower X $1.5 million per month. Publicly, the campaign was framed as an effort to combat rising anti-Semitism online. An Israeli foreign ministry official familiar with the arrangement says there was another strategic aim preventing young conservatives from turning against Israel. According to the official, Parscale presented himself as uniquely positioned to improve Israel's reputation among young conservatives. He stressed his experience at the helm of Trump's political operation, with a grasp of both the architecture of the modern internet and the political movement Trump had built. His position at Salem, whose radio stations, websites, podcasts, and digital properties were part of the conservative media ecosystem he promised to mobilize, was a boon as well. While Parscale acknowledges the operation was intended to prevent young conservatives from drifting away from Israel, he says neither he nor his firms played any role in turning opinion against Trump's objectives. I have never funded, organized, or participated in any effort to undermine Trump ever, including his MOU or ceasefire proposal, Parscale tells Time. The claim that I'm coordinating an effort to prolong the war is completely false. The only people manufacturing a conflict between Trump, Israel, and me are anonymous officials using background quotes to make me the boogeyman. 3 people familiar with the campaign describe a messaging operation run through a network of internet-connected firms overseen by Parscale or other firms he owns or created, such as Campaign, Nucleus, and Influenceable, in which he now owns a minority stake. Through private group chats, they say conservative influencers receive suggestive language for posts on social media sites such as X, Instagram, and TikTok. They were then compensated based on the impressions and engagement their content generated. On its website, Clocktower X says it has developed an influencer ecosystem that includes managed networks to amplify narratives through credible distributed voices. It remains unclear how much Parscale's outfits paid creators as part of the Israel campaign. Another recent Influenceable campaign offered influencers a base payment of $2,250 plus $1 for every 1,000 views, up to 2 million views, allowing influencers to earn as much as $4,250 per post, according to internal text messages reviewed by Time. People who participated, most of whom asked for anonymity, fearing reprisals, rejected the suggestion that there was anything improper about the practice. Parscale says none of the money from the FARA registered contract has been used to pay influencers, arguing that to do so would require them to disclose the source of their funding. He says other Christian organizations hired his firms, such as Influenceable, to support Israel in the wake of the October 7 attacks, but declined to identify them. Parscale, sorry, 1 second. Sorry, it's jumping all over the place. Give me 1 second. All right, there we go. One of the conservative figures associated with the campaign was Eyal Yacobi, a recent college grad with a popular X account who began working with one of Parscale firms about a year ago, he says, after testifying before a House committee about anti-Semitism on college campuses. Yacobi says neither Influenceable nor any other firm has ever compensated him to promote views he did not already hold. It's not like an agency that represents you, he says. An official with Influenceable says Yacobi has participated in numerous campaigns on issues related to Israel. Eyal Yacobi has worked with Influenceable as a paid influencer, but never on behalf of the Israeli government, the executive says, insisting none of their influencers have been paid with foreign money. Yacobi declined to comment further. The Parscale-led effort continues, but neither Trump administration nor the Israelis appear happy about how it's going. Netanyahu's government had hired Parscale to improve the nation's standing among conservatives, only to watch support continue to erode on the American right and across a broader U.S. electorate. We are pissed at Brad Parscale, says the Israeli official familiar with the arrangement, who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. He was supposed to make things better. We have paid him lots of money, but what did he do with it? Things have only gotten worse. I mean, honestly, it sounds like he did what he was supposed to do. Like, yeah, you can get engagement and you can get awareness, but that doesn't mean, yeah, people are aware and they don't fucking like you. So, like, according to the Pew Research Center, favorable views of both Israel and Netanyahu have fallen since last year. Only 32% of Americans now view the Israeli government favorably, the lowest level in decades. In April, Pew found that Republicans have a negative view of Israel ticked up since last year, with 57% of young Republicans having an unfavorable view compared with 50% a year ago. Global anti-Semitic incidents, meanwhile, have surged 34% since the Iran war's outbreak, according to the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement's Anti-Semitism Research Center. Parscale insists his initiative has been working. The purpose of this campaign was to prevent the enemies of Israel in the West from driving a wedge between Israel and the Americans who have traditionally supported it, particularly on the political right, as they have already succeeded in doing among significant portions of the left. Parscale says, citing a Scott Rasmussen poll released on June 5th that found 73% of voters who support Trump-like policies view Israel favorably. Support within that group for the strikes against Iran increased from 78% to 84%. And support for siding with Israel rose 7 points following the conflict with Iran. The audience we were tasked with reaching didn't abandon Israel, it rallied behind it. Okay, I bet you that audience has probably also dwindled too, so, makes sense. Leaving behind only those that support it. Inside the White House, some officials were frustrated for a different reason. What had begun as an effort to keep the American right support of Israel, they believed, had evolved into an influence campaign that was colliding with the president's political interests as Trump and Netanyahu's war aims diverged. Led by a figure trading on the perception that he remained close to Trump, they believed the very media ecosystem Parscale had promised to activate was now helping to circulate arguments to undercut Trump's effort to end the war. We're talking about American influencers who are being paid by a foreign country, then trying to build momentum to change the president's view or the views of others around him, says a senior U.S. intelligence official who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the issue publicly. It can't be dismissed as inconsequential by any means. Netanyahu's office refused to comment. I'm sorry, just give me a second. It's jumping all over the place. Sorry. All right, there we go. Netanyahu's office declined to comment. White House spokesperson declined to comment, saying they're unaware of the campaign. Brad Parscale had reinvented himself before. In 2016, he was the obscure digital operative who helped transform Facebook's advertising platform into one of the most potent political weapons in modern American history, using his targeting tools to help propel Trump's improbable victory. He took over as campaign manager of Trump's re-election campaign in 2020 before being jettisoned that summer. In the 6 years since, Parscale had built a digital empire of sorts, predicated on the idea that politics was no longer simply about persuading voters. It was about mastering the algorithms that determined what people saw and came to believe. Through Clock Tower X and a constellation of affiliate companies, he assembled a business designed for an era in which creators mattered as much as television anchors, podcasts rivaled cable news, and algorithms determined which messages spread and which disappeared. Rather than buying attention outright, the goal was to seed narratives inside communities that already trusted the people delivering them. Sorter's post caught the attention of the U.S. official monitoring the online debate over Israel and Iran. Looking more closely at the conversation about the deal unfolding across the conservative internet, the official began noticing the same pattern, similar language appearing across seemingly independent accounts in rapid succession. You have a person who is farming about his influencing work, a task who is being paid by a foreign element to the social media space. To me, this is a very, very dangerous thing. But online influencers are not the same as radio commentators, even though many on-air figures boast massive followings on social media. Parscale pointed to FCC regulations that prohibit foreign entities from influencing broadcast programming, and they require broadcasters to maintain editorial independence, saying his work has not included messaging through Salem. My contract with Israel does not influence Salem hosts or independent influencers. The idea that every pro-Israel voice must be part of some coordinating campaign is ridiculous. There are people who already support Trump and believe Israel is a vital ally. Sorry, it jumped again. Gotta hate that it keeps doing this. Give me a second. Where it just completely jumped when I was in the middle of reading something. Where the fuck? It totally just jumped that. All right. I think this is where I was at. By 2025, Israel needed exactly that. The military campaign that followed October 7th attacks had evolved in something larger than the battlefield contest. Israeli officials increasingly believe they were losing an information war on TikTok feeds, Instagram Reels, podcasts, YouTube videos, increasingly inside the AI systems that millions of people now relied upon to explain the world. The erosion of support for Israel had spread within the American right, where influential voices, including Tucker, Steve Bannon, and Steve Bannon had become openly skeptical of Netanyahu. The late conservative activist Charlie Kirk recognized this shift before many in Jerusalem did. In a private letter to Netanyahu in May 2025, which Time reviewed, Kirk warned that anti-Israel sentiment had reached record levels and urged an aggressive communications campaign. Mobilize influencers, send former hostages on speaking tours, flood social media stories that humanize Israeli society. I know you've got a seven-front war, and my kvetching pales in comparison, but I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even in conservative circles. Kirk wrote, this should be a 5-alarm fire. Netanyahu never responded to the letter, though he spoke to Kirk on the phone last year, according to sources familiar with the conversation. By last fall, Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs had concluded that its conventional public diplomacy efforts, known in Israel as Hasbara, were woefully insufficient. The Israelis worried about the influence of Carlson and Bannon and the suspicion taking hold among young conservatives that Israel exercised hidden control over America's foreign policy, according to the ministry official, and they feared Vance and his allies were steering the American right toward an isolationism fundamentally at odds with Israel's strategic interests. They wanted someone who understood the landscape in the internet and MAGA culture. Parscale wasn't the only Trump-aligned consultant they approached, but he seemed to fit the bill. He signed the agreement in September 2025, according to the FARA documents. An Israeli official involved in negotiations says Parscale presented himself as uniquely connected to Trump's political world, but Parscale hasn't spoken to the president in more than 5 years, according to sources familiar with the matter. Parscale's plan was focused in part on influencing the sources from which AI chatbots draw info. The op created websites such as paxpoint.org and factsignal.org. They were designed less for human readers than for AI systems synthesizing info from across the web. Another component involved a sprawling network of conservative influencers. According to a former participant, they received coordinated messages through private group chats, synchronized the timing of their posts, and were compensated based on the reach they generated. A similar effort of this kind became visible in March when Nick Sorter, a conservative with more than 1 million followers on X, accused Influenceable of coordinating an undisclosed campaign on behalf of the soda industry. Multiple MAGA influencers, Sorter noted, had posted strikingly similar messages in defending sugary drinks, which while invoking Trump's well-known affection for Diet Coke. Sorter published screenshots of the nearly identical posts and accused the network of manufacturing what appeared to be an organic grassroots convo. Sorter's post caught the attention of the U.S. official monitoring the online debate. Looking more closely at the conversation about the deal unfolding across the conservative internet, the official began noticing the same patterns, similar language appearing across seemingly independent accounts in rapid successions. What the fuck? Did it just jump on me again? I'm sorry. I think I just realized I'm reading back now. It's like jumping all over the place. I may have to just bail this just because it's being unworkable for reading. I think I may have just reread a whole paragraph because I just realized I'm way back in the... Let me go back a little bit. I think we may have actually read the whole article and it just jumped me to earlier in the article. So sorry for that. What the fuck? Yeah, it totally jumped me for no fucking reason. Sorter's post... yeah, okay. No, it didn't. I guess maybe it repeated itself. My bad. Or maybe it jumped me earlier and I'd already read this. Okay, whatever. All right, you get the idea. There was like 2 paragraphs left. I'm sorry. The ads kept jumping all over the place and made this kind of incomprehensible. But you get very much the idea here. One funny thing before we move on that I think is worthwhile mentioning, they did end up making a correction. Let me see. Actually, let me bring it up here on the time piece. But I have a tweet too. It says the original version of the story misstated that E.L. Jacoby confirmed he was paid by Influenceable to combat anti-Semitism. He has worked by Influenceable campaigns, according to a company official, but Jacoby did not say he was paid to combat anti-Semitism. So that I thought that was kind of funny that he whined and cried about that, and so instead of being like, oh, he worked on one specifically for Israel, now he's worked on a bunch. All right, guys. With that, let's go in the chat. Say our goodbyes. Say our good. Say more good mornings. Who knows? Maybe somebody else has showed up in here since we were getting ready to bail. But it is basically the end of the show. So, but yeah, let's check in on you guys. Hope that was I don't know, wasn't too bad. Sorry, I can't make it. I guess I could figure out the fucking the ad blocker. I need to do that one of those shits. Get one of these ad blockers. That's the next move. That's the next thing I do. Up my professionalism. Get an ad blocker. Let's keep checking out. All right, Pat, I know you're not flirting. I was just being silly. What else we got here? Bug fights. It's got to use Tacoma today. That's what the Jays saw fit to fund. I'll miss my big truck, but not the gas. Well, okay, cool. I like Tacoma. I like a little pickup truck. Tacomas are cool. I like Tacomas. Good morning, JC. Just seeing you show up. Nice. Good morning, John Black. Saying good morning to you, dumpers, and this handsome beast. Thank you. What else we got? Tilla pointing out the Jose brand professionalism. Hey, sorry. JC said you're just getting warm. I'm done. I'm like I went longer than I intended to here. Sorry. I was hoping to keep this on the shorter side, maybe around an hour and a half. I had other stuff that I even had to cut as I was going through this. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and get out of here. If you like what I'm doing here, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. If you want to support the show in the best way you can do that with money over at patreon.com/nowayjose. In the top left-hand corner, you got the QR code right there. Brings you to the same place. Over there, the low level of $2. Did I fuck up my thing? No way. Patreon.com/nowayjose2020 is the way you can spend the money. Sorry, my head's all frazzled. The fucking ad thing jumping me all over the place. It just threw me off big time. Fucking annoying. So I'm sorry if I fucked up that screw. You guys know where to support the show. Patreon.com/nowayjose2020. Got QR code top left-hand corner. It's on all the different platforms. Over there, you can get early episodes. Got a bunch of them behind the paywall right now, way more than I normally keep. You can add free RSS feed, Telegram, pre-show, post-show, video calls on me and Austin's weekly live call-in show and Already Dead, which is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Show up, hang out, call in, have a good time. Ooh, Afrez, first time seeing you here. Good morning to you, and good day. Good morning and goodbye. And I also give a big shout out to the highest level of my Patreons. A big thank you for their support. I'm my previous co-host of Tower Gang at Tower Gang Toad. Also at Abrigades as the OVCK at _Invit Zeal. Tim Tuttle at John Klebold. Big fan of the show. Torn May at Wayne Tech. Someone cover kids. No free lunch. Jack. Mark Festival. Jake Winograd at the Political Anarchy Podcast. And John Black. You beautiful bastard. And with that, guys, we're going to get out of here. I have a cute little video for you guys I think you will enjoy. Who doesn't like adorable shit? Here's some lady that found some little animals in her grass and raised them, and now you have something adorable. So enjoy this little outro of cuteness. We'll see you probably Monday, maybe Tuesday. Have a good weekend. We love you all. Bye-bye.
Oh my God.